5 traps to avoid after karma destroys your enemies. If you've been watching karma destroy your enemies over the past few weeks, congratulations. You witnessed divine justice unfold exactly as it should. But here's what they don't teach you in spiritual warfare class. After the battle is won, 9 out of 10 chosen ones make devastating mistakes that actually undo everything karma just accomplished for them. I've seen this happen too many times. The enemy gets destroyed, victory is clear, and then the chosen one sabotages their own spiritual breakthrough. Today I'm revealing the 5 deadly traps that destroy spiritual victories. If you've witnessed karma working, you need to know these, because losing your spiritual victory to one of these traps is more painful than the original persecution. Let's dive in. Before we begin, I want to remind you of something important. Karma working on your enemies is not the end of your spiritual journey. It's the beginning of a new phase. In my previous video, 8 Signs Karma is Working for You, I showed you how to recognize when divine justice is in motion. In my video about 7 blessings God sends after karma, I showed you what's coming next. But between victory and blessings lies a dangerous period where most people fail. This is when the enemy attempts his final assault, not through your enemies, but through you. These 5 traps are his most cunning strategies. They're not obvious sins or rebellion. They're spiritual mistakes that look harmless, but will rob you of everything you've gained. Let me show you exactly what to watch for. The first trap, the lethargy of spiritual complacency. The journey of faith is not a single decisive sprint, but a lifelong campaign. Of all the dangers that await the victorious believer, none is more subtle and none is more fatal than the first and most common trap, spiritual complacency. It is the siren song of comfort that lulls the warrior to sleep on the very ground they have just won, the anatomy of the relapse. The cycle of spiritual warfare often follows a predictable, taxing rhythm. For months, your life was a battlefield. You engaged in intense spiritual warfare, a demanding regimen of prayer that moved mountains, the physical discipline of fasting that sharpened your focus, and the authoritative action of declaring, binding, and loosing the enemy's strongholds. You were, in essence, fighting on all cylinders, exhausting yourself in the pursuit of divine intervention and victory. Then comes the moment of triumph. Karma strikes. Your enemy, whether a toxic relationship, a financial curse, or a persistent personal vice, finally falls. The battle is won. It is in this precise moment of relief that the fatal thought emerges. It's over. I can relax now. This dangerous conclusion is the linchpin of the trap. It's a subtle shift from faithful vigilance to reckless relaxation. The assumption is that because God delivered a victory, the maintenance of that victory is no longer your responsibility. A historical warning. The error of Israel. This dynamic is not new. It is a profound lesson etched into the history of God's people. This is exactly what happened to Israel after they entered the Promised Land. Their victory over the nations of Canaan was miraculous and undeniable. They had fought hard battles and seen truly miraculous victories. Yet, as the years passed and the land yielded its fruit, they grew comfortable. They transitioned from a desert-hardened army to a settled agrarian society. They stopped guarding their hearts. They failed to drive out the remaining pockets of resistance. And, crucially, they began to adopt the spiritual practices and idols of their defeated neighbors. They mistook a temporary peace for a permanent state of security, the consequences of surrender. The scriptures provide a clear warning about the spiritual danger of letting down your guard. Proverbs 29 verse 25 says, "Fear of man will prove to be a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord will be safe." When you stop fighting spiritually, a vacuum is created and your former enemies rush back in. The cessation of spiritual discipline is not merely neutral, it is a declaration of partial surrender. Complacency creates new snares. By neglecting the disciplines that fortified your trust in the Lord, you reopen the door to the very anxieties and influences you had previously defeated. The trap manifests in tangible, erosive ways. Neglecting the dawn. You start sleeping in instead of praying, viewing the morning intercession as a luxury instead of a necessity. The silent weapon. You skip your morning declarations, allowing the voice of doubt and the enemy's whispers to drown out the voice of your faith. A retreat from sacrifice. You stop fasting, losing the spiritual edge and clarity that comes from denying the flesh. The false assumption. You figure God has it handled now, subtly shifting the burden of spiritual stewardship entirely onto Him, forgetting the partnership required in maintaining freedom. The immediate danger, regaining ground. Here is the brutal reality. When you stop maintaining your spiritual armor, the enemy doesn't stay defeated. A spiritual victory is not like filing a deed. It is a border that must be continuously patrolled. The defeated enemy has a singular objective: to exploit your weakness and complacency. He rapidly regains ground you fought hard to win. The evidence of this relapse is everywhere. I see this all the time. A client or friend experiences a profound shift. Someone witnesses karma working on their narcissistic parent or abusive ex. They see the visible manifestation of divine justice or consequence. Triumphant. They think, God handled it, I'm done. They dismantle their spiritual fortifications and re-engage with the world unarmed. But then in 6 months, they're back in the same toxic patterns, attracting similar people, reacting with the old hurts, or even allowing the defeated adversary back into their life. Why? Because they stopped the spiritual practices that maintain their victory. The ground they won in prayer was lost in neglect. Your freedom is a secured asset, but it requires continuous maintenance. Do not mistake the end of a battle for the end of the war. Don't let this be you. Keep your armor on, your sword sharp, and your vigilance unwavering. Trap number 2, premature celebration. The peril of premature celebration, a spiritual warfare warning. The journey through spiritual conflict is fraught with hidden dangers, and one of the most destructive is the premature celebration of a perceived victory. This common mistake has the power to dismantle a seemingly secured triumph faster than almost any other error. It is a heady moment when you witness divine vindication in action. Karma appears to strike swiftly and decisively. Your adversary's stronghold begins to crumble, often in the public eye. You possess irrefutable scriptural evidence that the Almighty is actively fighting on your behalf. The temptation to broadcast this triumph is overwhelming, driven by a mixture of relief, vindication, and a sincere desire to give credit where it is due. The thought process goes, look what God has done. See how magnificently He defended me. My ex is losing everything, just as I prophesied and prayed for. While this urge feels righteous, it feels like an act of sharing God's glory. It creates a cascade of spiritual liabilities that can have lasting detrimental consequences for years to come. 3 critical spiritual liabilities of premature celebration. Prematurely announcing your vindication undermines the victory on multiple levels. 1. Violation of spiritual warfare protocol. The nature of true, God-given victory demands a particular decorum. You are meant to let the vindication be God-sized, not man-sized. The moment you seize the microphone and announce the win prematurely, you shift the spotlight from the divine victor to yourself, the receiver of the victory. The focus shifts, the narrative subtly changes from praise God for his mighty intervention to look at me, a highly favored individual whom God defended. The glory is diluted by making it about your prophecy, your foresight, or your endured suffering. You inadvertently diminish the boundless power and grace of God, making the victory feel more like a personal reward than a grand act of deliverance. The full magnitude of God's power is best demonstrated through silent, unquestionable results, not boastful announcements. 2. Giving the enemy ammunition. Silence is often the most formidable weapon in spiritual warfare. When you declare victory before the final battle is fully won, you effectively remove your spiritual camouflage. Counterattack initiation. Your enemy and, crucially, those working on the enemy's behalf are instantly alerted. They realize their actions are being monitored and that their crumbling status is a matter of public or private knowledge. This knowledge provides them with fresh motivation and a specific target. Specific spiritual warfare. Instead of dealing with general spiritual resistance, you become the subject of focused, targeted counterattacks. The opposition shifts from reacting to God's actions to actively waging warfare against you, specifically seeking to trip you up, sow doubt, or exploit any weakness exposed by your celebratory hubris. The reversal risk. The celebration is based on a current situation, the enemy falling apart, not a final conclusion, the season having permanently changed. This window of time is when the enemy is most desperate to reclaim ground, and a premature boast is an open invitation for a spiritual skirmish that could reverse momentum. 3. Creating unrealistic spiritual maturity expectations. Your public testimony, even when intended to be inspiring, sets an immediate and often unattainable standard for those watching, creating a spiritual burden for yourself. Performance Christian mode. Others, seeing the public sign of vindication, now expect you to be instantaneously over it or fully healed. They assume the external victory equals total internal restoration. The reality of healing. The truth is, while God may grant swift vindication, emotional and spiritual healing is a process that requires time, reflection, and quiet recovery. Premature celebration forces you into a performance Christian mode, the pressure to act like you are perfectly healed, perfectly mature, and perfectly impervious to residual pain simply because God defended you. This performance drains spiritual energy and delays true internal recovery. The right protocol, protecting God's glory. The path to securing and honoring a spiritual victory is one of deliberate and thoughtful timing. Private gratitude. The initial, immediate, and overwhelming response should be to thank God privately for what He has done. This is where you process your relief, confirm your faith, and humbly receive the gift of deliverance. Keep this sacred moment between you and the divine. Delayed testimony. share your full testimony only after two critical conditions are met. The full victory is accomplished. The threat is not just diminished, it is fully neutralized, and the outcome is settled. The season has changed. You have moved beyond the immediate crisis and into a settled, stable, and recovered state. Protection, not hiding. This patient approach is not an act of hiding God's glory. It is an act of protecting it. By waiting, you allow the victory to speak for itself, magnifying God's power and providing a testimony that is seasoned, robust, and secure from counterattack, thus ensuring the ultimate integrity of the deliverance. The third trap is the snare of vengeance thoughts. The third, and perhaps most deceptively spiritual, pitfall is the trap of vengeance thoughts. This is a particularly sneaky snare because it often masquerades as righteous anger or a simple desire for fairness and justice. The deceptive scenario. Imagine the situation. The divine process, often colloquially referred to as karma, is clearly working against the person who wronged you. Their life seems to be unraveling, they're losing their job, their significant relationships are crumbling, their social standing or reputation is being destroyed. They are facing real consequences for their actions. This is the critical moment. You find yourself indulging the thought, this is exactly what they deserve. I hope they lose everything. I hope the consequences are excruciating and prolonged. You may even utter justifications like, I have no pity for them. They brought this entire catastrophe on themselves. Why should I feel anything but satisfaction? On the surface, this emotional response feels justified. Given the pain and suffering they inflicted upon you, doesn't the enemy deserve to suffer? Isn't this merely the universe rebalancing itself, stepping out of divine justice? But here is the dangerous, soul-siphoning truth. When you begin to indulge and savor these thoughts of vengeance, you commit a critical spiritual error. You are effectively stepping out of God's divine justice system and attempting to operate within your own flawed human justice system. The divine command on this matter is unambiguous and absolute. Romans 12 verse 19 provides the spiritual blueprint for a righteous response. Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, it is mine to avenge. I will repay, says the Lord. The moment you see consequences befalling your enemy, it is a sign that God is already fighting your battle. When you start wanting more, a deeper fall, a greater loss, more intense suffering, you are essentially trying to take over God's job as the ultimate arbiter of justice. You are implying that God's current pace or measure of justice is insufficient for your satisfaction. The consequences of the vengeance trap. This trap is not benign. It is spiritually toxic and creates three primary problems that severely impede your progress. 1. Spiritual intoxication and obsession. The first consequence is that vengeance thoughts make you spiritually intoxicated with the enemy's downfall. Your focus shifts entirely from your internal spiritual well-being to their external suffering. You become obsessed with their pain and the spectacle of their demise instead of being fiercely focused on your own healing, restoration, and future blessing. Your energy, time, and mental space are consumed by them, tethering you to the very source of your past pain. 2. Spiritual interference and stalling. Second, this mindset can stall or actually reverse your spiritual progress. God operates according to a perfect justice, which is always tempered with perfect love, wisdom, and timing. When you attempt to accelerate or amplify the justice process through your own willful desire for vengeance, you introduce spiritual interference. You are demanding a different outcome than the one the divine system has decreed, which can disrupt the flow of grace and blessing into your own life. You are essentially fighting against the very force that is meant to protect you. 3. Vulnerability to final attacks. Third, indulging in vengeance makes you critically vulnerable to the enemy's final attacks. When your mind is completely preoccupied with their punishment, their loss, their pain, their suffering, you are not guarding your own spiritual house. Your attention is directed externally, away from the need to secure your blessing, fortify your peace, and move forward. A spirit preoccupied with retribution is an unguarded spirit, leaving the door open for anxiety, bitterness, and future spiritual attacks. The simple, powerful solution, the path out of this dangerous trap, is profound in its simplicity. Let God be God. Instead of demanding more, thank Him for the justice that is already unfolding. Acknowledge that the matter is settled and the avenging sword is in the only hand that can wield it perfectly. Then immediately refocus your entire being on your own healing and your own blessings. Shift your obsession from their suffering to your success. Your peace is your greatest revenge, and your focus on your divine destiny is the ultimate act of liberation. The fourth trap is spiritual pride, and this might be the most destructive trap of all. Here's how it develops. You witnessed karma destroy your enemy. You prayed, you declared, you fought spiritually, and God vindicated you. You start feeling like a spiritual warrior. Look what I accomplished through prayer. Look how God used my faith. I caused this karma to work. I'm pretty spiritual. This pride feels good. It feels earned, but it's deadly to your spiritual growth. Pride destroys everything. Proverbs 16 verse 18 says, "Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall." When you take credit for God's work, you cut yourself off from His continued blessing. You start operating from your own strength instead of His power. This trap looks like this. You start telling others how to fight their battles. You become the expert on spiritual warfare. You begin counseling people based on your victory instead of seeking God's wisdom for their journey. You also become spiritually isolated. Pride makes it hard to receive correction, accountability, or new revelation from God. You think you know it all now. This trap looks like this. You start telling others how to fight their battles. You become the expert on spiritual warfare. You begin counseling people based on your victory instead of seeking God's wisdom for their journey. You also become spiritually isolated. Pride makes it hard to receive correction, accountability, or new revelation from God. You think you know it all now. The most dangerous part, pride makes you vulnerable to the enemy's counterattack. When you take credit for God's work, you step outside of His protection. You're operating from your own strength, and that's exactly where the enemy wants you. Remember, you didn't make karma work. God did. You were simply faithful in prayer and fasting. The victory belongs to Him, not you. Stay humble. Stay grateful. Stay dependent on God for everything. The fifth and final trap, forgetting God's perfect methods. This final and perhaps most destructive trap is the failure to remember and trust in God's proven methods, an oversight that inevitably dismantles long-term spiritual victories and independence, the cycle of forgetfulness. The danger begins right after a profound, supernatural deliverance. You have just been an eyewitness to divine justice karma working not through coincidence, but through God's active intervention. You watched an adversary's intricate plan unravel in ways that defy human explanation, a meticulous orchestration that could only be the handiwork of the Almighty. The memory of that perfect, timely divine justice should be a permanent anchor for your soul. Yet, as soon as a new trial emerges, a fresh giant appears on the horizon. The memory of God's perfect power fades. A dangerous, self-reliant thought creeps in, I need to make this happen faster. I should push this along. God might need my help to speed up the timeline. This is the first fatal fracture in your faith, the critical mistake, usurping divine authority. The essence of this trap is the belief that you can improve upon perfection. It is a profound arrogance that discounts God's omnipotence and omniscience. God's methods are not merely good, they are perfect. His timing is not just adequate, it is flawless. As the prophet Isaiah reminds us, proclaiming the very words of the Lord. Isaiah 55:8-9. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. To forget God's methods is to reject the wisdom of the heavens and descend to the folly of earthly tactics, the descent into worldly tactics. When you abandon trust in God's perfect process, you immediately resort to carnal, worldly methods that short-circuit spiritual power. Instead of waiting in quiet confidence, you begin to manipulate circumstances. The spiritual weapon of prayer is replaced by the earthly vice of gossip. You stop trusting God to uphold your name and start actively trying to turn public opinion against your enemies. The goal shifts from seeking God's will to engineering a desired outcome using human leverage and influence. This shift is rooted in a loss of faith in the miraculous. You begin to rationalize the past. That stunning victory was a one-time miracle. Now, the pressure is on me. I have to handle things myself. This mindset strips God of his consistency and reduces him to a one-hit wonder, forcing you to carry burdens he never intended for you to bear alone. The consequences, a cutoff from power. This trap is uniquely destructive because it severs your connection to the source of all power. You voluntarily step out of the current of God's grace and intervention. Loss of anointing. You transform from being a receptive vessel of God's blessing and power, a conduit through which the supernatural can flow, into an exhausted human being frantically trying to create your own outcomes through sheer willpower and flawed strategy. Spiritual exhaustion. Manipulating people and circumstances is profoundly draining. It leads to anxiety, burnout, and a deep, gnawing sense of isolation, because you have replaced the Holy Spirit's help with your own insufficient strength. Compromise and failure. Worldly methods often require compromise, bending the truth, acting out of malice, or engaging in behaviors that ultimately dishonor God and leave you feeling hollow, even if the immediate victory is achieved. These self-made victories are always fleeting and lack the true vindication and peace that only God can grant. The simple, powerful solution: return to the anchor. The remedy for this trap is a simple yet profound act of spiritual discipline. Remember and recalibrate. Remember how God worked before. Rehearse the past victories. Write them down. Keep the memory of his supernatural intervention fresh in your mind. If he did it then, he is more than capable of doing it now. Trust his methods. This means choosing prayer over gossip, silence over slander, and patient waiting over frantic manipulation. It means submitting to his higher way, even when it feels slow or illogical to your natural mind. Wait for his timing. Abandon the clock and calendar of man and submit to the perfect kairos timing of God. True faith is not rushing God. It is resting in him. Do not attempt to improve on perfection. Trust the master strategist. Wait for the perfect unfolding of his plan, for in that patience lies your long-term spiritual victory. Conclusion and call to action. So there you have it, the 5 profound traps designed to destroy spiritual victories and nullify the divine work that has been accomplished in your life. If you have been a witness to the undeniable manifestation of divine justice, often called karma, working its course upon your adversaries, it is absolutely critical that you understand and, more importantly, avoid these 5 spiritual pitfalls. They are cunningly designed to rob you of your hard-won peace, steal your victory, and tragically put you right back into the cycle of struggle you just escaped. Here is an in-depth look at each trap. 1. Spiritual complacency, stopping your spiritual practices after victory. The moment of victory is not the finish line. It is merely the end of a specific battle. Spiritual complacency sets in when you mistakenly believe the war is over. Having witnessed the enemy fall, you begin to neglect the very practices that granted you strength and connection in the first place: daily prayer, meditation, scripture study, fasting, or consistent gratitude. This spiritual laziness is an open invitation for a counterattack. The enemy never truly rests. Your victory was secured through vigilance and discipline. Abandoning them is a guaranteed way to lose the ground you gained. Your discipline in victory must be greater than your desperation in the fight. Point 2. Premature celebration, announcing God's work before it's complete. This trap is born of excitement and a lack of understanding regarding the completion of divine work. Premature celebration is the human impulse to declare a thing finished and broadcast the details before God has fully sealed the victory. A prophecy or a promise fulfilled in part is not fully realized. Sharing sensitive details or gloating prematurely can inject unnecessary human energy, skepticism, envy, or even a counter-spiritual attack into a process that requires the sanctity of divine timing and silence. True spiritual work is often completed in the quiet. Learn to hold your peace and let God's final, undeniable confirmation speak for itself. Point 3. Vengeance thoughts, trying to take over God's justice system. When you see the initial steps of karma or divine justice taking effect, a dangerous temptation arises, the desire to hasten or augment the punishment. Vengeance thoughts are the subtle suggestion that God's justice isn't fast enough or severe enough, leading you to fantasize about, or worse, participate in the downfall of your enemy. This trap is an act of spiritual hubris, attempting to seize control of the cosmic balance. Justice belongs solely to the divine. By harboring thoughts of vengeance, you pollute your own spirit, forfeit your place as the innocent party, and effectively step out of God's protection and into the mess you were just delivered from. Your job is to forgive and release, not to adjudicate. Point 4. Spiritual pride, taking credit for God's work. The most insidious of the traps, spiritual pride, is the whisper that tells you you are the architect of your deliverance. It is the ego-driven belief that your superior prayer, fasting, or spiritual knowledge is what secured the victory, rather than the boundless grace and power of God. When you begin to take credit for the miracles, you sever the lifeline to the source of that power. Pride blinds you to your continued need for God and prevents the ongoing flow of grace. Humility is the armor of the victorious. Recognize that you were merely the vessel through which God's power flowed, and give all the glory where it is due. Point 5. Forgetting God's methods, trying to help God along. This trap stems from a lack of trust in the divine process. Forgetting God's methods involves abandoning the principles faith, patience, non-retaliation, integrity that brought the victory, and resorting to worldly, manipulative, or carnal methods to ensure the final outcome. Perhaps you feel compelled to nudge the situation with a little gossip, a lie, or an act of coercion. This is a desperate attempt to help God along. The truth is, God needs no assistance from your fallen methods. When you introduce human cunning and manipulation, you compromise the purity of the divine intervention, and the victory, however visible, becomes tainted and unstable. Trust the process and stick to the methods of righteousness. But here's the good news, the empowering revelation. Now that you know about these traps, you can actively avoid them. Awareness is truly half the battle. These 5 pitfalls thrive in the darkness of ignorance, but you have been given light. Which of these traps do you honestly feel you are most vulnerable to, or which have you fallen into in the past? Comment below and share your insights. I make it a point to read every single comment, and your honest questions often inspire the focus of my future content, ensuring this community grows stronger together. And here's what's coming next to equip you further. In my next exclusive video, I'm revealing the 7 stages of divine justice. This comprehensive breakdown details exactly what happens to your enemies step by step when the spiritual law of karma is fully at work. This knowledge is crucial. It will empower you to recognize precisely where your adversaries are in the process and what you can expect as the situation unfolds, eliminating uncertainty and fear. If this deep dive has helped you understand and commit to avoiding these spiritual pitfalls, please smash that like button and subscribe for more essential spiritual warfare and victory content. Remember, you are not just a passive viewer, you are an active, vital member of a community of chosen ones committed to fighting and winning battles the right way with honor, integrity, and faith. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay humble, and remember the ultimate truth. Let God be God.